My girlfriend said, "Times Square kiss at midnight." I replied, "Time to square up and leave." Then I ended it at the party, disappeared by countdown, never returned, and I smiled when she watched the ball drop alone. Hey Reddit. Baby, can you believe we're finally going to do the Times Square kiss at midnight? Like in the movies? I looked up from my phone. Yeah, can't wait. The way she said it, so rehearsed, so performative, made my stomach turn. But I kept my face neutral. We were at her friend Vanessa's New Year's Eve party. Upper West Side apartment, champagne on every table, people dressed like they were extras in a Gatsby remake. I was 24, been with her for 2 years, and until 3 days ago, I thought we were solid. 3 days ago, I found out we weren't. She squeezed my hand and disappeared into the crowd, her silver dress catching the light. I watched her go, then pulled out my phone again. The screenshots were still there. I'd read them maybe 50 times by now. Each time felt worse than the last. Yo, you good? I turned. Marcus, one of the few people here I actually knew, stood next to me holding 2 beers. He handed me one. Yeah, I'm fine. You look like you're at a funeral, not a party. I took a long drink. Just tired. He didn't buy it, but he didn't push either. Marcus knew me well enough to know when to back off. The apartment was packed. Maybe 80 people, all loud, all drunk, all pretending this year would somehow be different from the last. Through the window, I could see the city lit up, the distant glow of Times Square a few blocks south. Every year, the same ritual, the same manufactured excitement. She appeared again, this time with Vanessa and 2 other girls I vaguely recognized. They were laughing about something, heads close together, phones out. One of them glanced at me, then quickly looked away. That glance told me everything. They knew. So what's the plan? Marcus asked. You guys heading down to the actual square after? Or watching from here? Watching from here. Smart. It's a nightmare down there. Sardines in body heat. I nodded, not really listening. My eyes were on her again. She was animated now, gesturing with her champagne glass, playing to her audience. This was her element, the center of attention, the life of every room she entered. 2 years, 730 days, and I'd spent maybe 600 of them thinking I was lucky. The other 130, I was just blind. I'm gonna grab some air, I said. Marcus raised an eyebrow. It's freezing out there. I know. I stepped onto the balcony. The cold hit immediately, sharp and clean. Below, the city hummed with pre-midnight chaos. Car horns, distant music, the occasional scream of excitement. New York on New Year's Eve was its own kind of insanity. I pulled up the screenshots again. The first one was from November. A conversation between her and someone named Tyler. The tone was friendly at first, too friendly, but not quite crossing a line. Then it shifted. Inside jokes. Late-night texts. The kind of rapport that doesn't develop in a vacuum. The second screenshot was worse. I wish you were here instead of him. That was her. Sent 2 weeks ago, when we were supposed to be having a romantic dinner downtown. His response, soon. The third screenshot was from 5 days ago. I'm telling him after New Year's. I just want one last normal holiday before everything changes. I'd found them by accident. Her laptop was open, iMessage synced. I wasn't snooping. I was looking for a recipe she'd mentioned. But there it was. 3 months of evidence that I'd been playing a role in someone else's exit strategy. The door behind me opened. I put the phone away. There you are. She stepped onto the balcony, wrapping her arms around herself. It's freezing. What are you doing out here? Needed a minute. She moved closer, leaning against the railing. You've been weird all night. Are you okay? I'm fine. You're not fine. I can tell. She put her hand on my arm. Talk to me. I looked at her. Really looked at her. The concern on her face seemed genuine. Maybe it was. Maybe she'd convinced herself she was doing the right thing by waiting. Maybe she thought she was being kind. I'm just thinking, I said. About what? About midnight. She smiled, mistaking my tone for excitement. I know. I'm so happy we're doing this. It's going to be perfect. Perfect. I almost laughed. We should get back inside, she said. It's almost 11. Vanessa wants to do a champagne toast before the countdown. I followed her back in. The apartment was louder now, everyone a few drinks deeper into the night. Someone had turned up the music. A group near the kitchen was attempting to dance, badly. Vanessa appeared with a tray of champagne flutes. Everyone grabbed one. Toast time. People gathered in a loose circle. I took a glass but didn't drink. Vanessa cleared her throat dramatically. Okay. I just want to say thank you all for being here. This year has been amazing, and I know next year is going to be even better. To new beginnings. To new beginnings, everyone echoed. I felt her squeeze my hand. New beginnings. The irony was suffocating. The next hour passed in a blur. I moved through the party like a ghost, making conversation when necessary, laughing at jokes I didn't hear. She stayed close, occasionally checking in, her hand always finding mine. To anyone watching, we probably looked happy. At 11:45, people started migrating toward the windows. The TV was on, showing the crowd in Times Square. A million people crammed together, waiting for a ball to drop. 15 minutes, she said, her voice bright. You ready? Yeah. She kissed my cheek. This is going to be so special. I nodded, saying nothing. Marcus caught my eye from across the room. He tilted his head slightly. You sure you're good? I gave him a small nod. At 11:50, Vanessa turned up the TV volume. The countdown coverage was in full swing now, showing celebrities and tourists screaming into cameras. 10 minutes, someone yelled. People started pairing off, couples finding each other in preparation for the midnight kiss. The energy in the room shifted, anticipation building like static electricity. She pulled me toward a spot near the window. Perfect view, she said. I looked out at the city. From here, you could just make out the lights of Times Square, the massive screens glowing in the distance. In 10 minutes, everyone down there would scream and cheer and kiss like their lives depended on it. I love you, she said suddenly. I turned to look at her. I love you so much, she repeated. I know I don't say it enough, but I do. For a moment, just one moment, I almost believed her. Almost believed that the screenshots were fake or misunderstood or somehow not what they seemed. Almost believed that 2 years meant something, that I meant something. But then I remembered Tyler. I know, I said. She smiled, satisfied. At 11:55, the energy in the room reached a fever pitch. The TV showed the ball beginning its descent preparation. People were checking their phones, making sure they had the exact time. 5 minutes, Vanessa announced. I felt my phone buzz. I pulled it out. Marcus, whatever you're planning, I hope you know what you're doing. I typed back, I do. She was talking to someone next to her, laughing about something. I watched her for a moment, memorizing this version of her, the version that still thought everything was fine. At 11:58, I excused myself. Where are you going? She asked. It's almost midnight. Bathroom. I'll be right back. Hurry. I pushed through the crowd, moving toward the hallway. But I didn't go to the bathroom. I went to the coat closet near the entrance. My jacket was still there, buried under a pile of designer coats. I pulled it on quietly. From the living room, I heard the countdown beginning. 60. I opened the front door. 59. I stepped into the hallway. 58. I closed the door behind me. The hallway was silent compared to the chaos inside. I could still hear the counting, muffled but clear. 50. 49. 48. I walked to the elevator and pressed the button. 40. 39. 38. The elevator arrived. I stepped inside. 30. 29. 28. The doors closed. I rode down in silence, the numbers descending, 10th floor, 9th, 8th. By the time I reached the lobby, the countdown was over. Through the building's glass doors, I could hear the eruption of noise from the street. Car horns, screaming, the distant sound of fireworks. I stepped outside. The cold hit harder than it had on the balcony. I started walking, no particular direction, just away. My phone buzzed almost immediately. Her, where are you? I didn't respond. Her, this isn't funny. Everyone's asking where you went. I kept walking. Her, please come back. We can talk about whatever's wrong. I turned the corner, heading toward Central Park. The streets were chaos. Drunk people hugging strangers, couples making out against building walls, groups singing off-key. My phone rang. I declined it. It rang again. Declined. A text from Marcus. She's freaking out. What happened? Me. Tell her I left. Marcus. She knows that. She wants to know why. Me. She knows why. I silenced my phone and kept walking. The park was quieter. Most people still congregated near the restaurants and bars. I found a bench near the edge of the trees and sat down. My breath came out in clouds. I pulled out my phone one more time, ignoring the flood of messages and missed calls. Instead, I opened up a new text thread. Me. I know about Tyler. I didn't specify who I was texting. I didn't need to. 3 dots appeared immediately. Her what? Me. I've known for 3 days. Read everything. November to now. Her, where are you? Let me explain. Me, no need. You were clear enough in your messages. One last normal holiday, right? Her, please. It's not what you think. Me, it's exactly what I think. You were going to break up with me after tonight. So I'm just saving you the trouble. Her, I wasn't. I mean, I was confused, but I wasn't. Me, don't. Just don't. Her, I love you. I stared at those 3 words for a long time. Once, they would have meant everything. Now they felt hollow. Me, you love the idea of not being alone on New Year's Eve. There's a difference. I blocked her number before she could respond. For a moment, I just sat there. Around me, the city continued its celebration, oblivious. Somewhere, fireworks were still going off. Somewhere, people were still kissing, still toasting, still pretending this arbitrary change of date meant something profound. I thought about her, standing in that apartment, watching the ball drop, watching me not come back, explaining to her friends what happened, or more likely, making up a story that made her look better. I thought about the months she'd spent planning her exit while pretending everything was fine. The dinners, the date nights, the I love yous that had all been maintenance, not affection. I thought about Tyler, whoever he was, probably texting her right now with some hollow comfort. And you know what? I smiled. Not because I was happy. I wasn't. Not because I'd won something. I hadn't. I smiled because for the first time in 3 days, I wasn't pretending. I stood up, shoving my hands in my pockets. The cold was brutal, but I barely felt it. I started walking again, this time with actual purpose. There was a 24-hour diner on the other side of the park. Warm food, terrible coffee, and silence. My phone buzzed one more time before I silenced it completely. It was Vanessa. She's crying. Whatever happened, you need to come back and fix this. I didn't respond. Some things can't be fixed. Some things were broken long before the countdown ever started. I reached the diner at 12:47 a.m. The place was nearly empty. Just a couple of night shift workers and one guy asleep in a corner booth. I slid into a seat by the window and ordered coffee and eggs. The waitress didn't ask why I was alone on New Year's. She'd probably seen worse. While I waited, I pulled out my phone one last time. Not to check messages. Those could wait forever for all I cared. But to look at my calendar. January 1st. New year. New beginning. Funny how everyone treats it like magic, like the turn of a date actually changes anything. But sitting there in that diner, eating eggs at 1 in the morning while the city slowly wound down outside, I realized something. It wasn't the date that mattered. It was the decision. She'd made hers weeks ago, maybe months ago. She just hadn't had the courage to follow through until circumstances forced her hand. I'd made mine tonight. Walked out at 11:58. While she was still counting down to a kiss that was never going to happen. Timing wasn't everything, but it was something. My phone stayed silent after I blocked her. No more messages, no more calls. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that used to make me anxious, but now felt like relief. I finished my eggs. Paid the check. Left a decent tip because the waitress had left me alone. Outside, the temperature had dropped even more. Most of the celebration had died down, the streets now filled with trash and the occasional straggler trying to find an Uber. I started the long walk back to my apartment. Not the one we'd talked about getting together next year. My apartment. The one I'd kept just in case things ever went sideways. Turns out, just in case was tonight. By the time I got home, it was almost 3 a.m. I kicked off my shoes, hung up my jacket, and collapsed onto the couch. My phone was still silent. Good. I didn't sleep right away. I just sat there, staring at the ceiling, replaying the night. Not with regret. I didn't regret leaving. But with a kind of hollow acknowledgement that 2 years had ended with me walking out of a party while everyone else counted down to midnight. There was no dramatic confrontation, no shouting match, no thrown drinks or public scene. Just me, opening a door and closing it behind me while she stood by a window, waiting for a kiss that never came. Sometimes the quietest endings are the loudest. I finally fell asleep around 4, phone still on silent, door locked, world outside moving forward without me. When I woke up the next afternoon, I had 43 messages from various people. Her friends, Marcus, even Vanessa. I deleted them without reading most of them. The only one I kept was from Marcus. Call me when you're ready. No judgment. I appreciated that. But I wasn't ready. Not yet. Instead, I made coffee, opened my laptop, and started looking at apartments. 1 bedrooms this time. No space for 2. No plans for someday. Just me. It took about a week for the texts to stop. She tried a few different numbers, friends' phones, probably, but I recognized the tone and deleted them immediately. Eventually, she gave up. Marcus told me later that she'd spun the story to make me look unstable. Said I'd had some kind of breakdown and abandoned her without explanation. That she'd been nothing but supportive and I'd just lost it. I didn't bother correcting anyone. The people who mattered knew the truth. The people who believed her version weren't worth the energy. Tyler, apparently, lasted about 3 weeks before she realized he wasn't interested in anything serious. Marcus heard through mutual friends that she'd tried to reach out to me after that, looking for closure or maybe reconciliation. I never responded. Because here's what I learned that night, standing in the hallway while everyone else counted down to midnight. You can't get closure from someone who's been lying to you for months. You can't fix something that was already broken. And you can't save a relationship where only one person is actually invested. She checked out long before I found those screenshots. I just didn't know it yet. Walking out at 11:58 wasn't cruel. It was honest. More honest than anything she'd given me in weeks. If you've ever been in a situation where the truth arrives late but leaves quickly, you'll understand why this stayed with me. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was quiet. Because sometimes the biggest moments don't come with a soundtrack or a crowd. Sometimes they come with just you, a closing door, and the sound of people counting down to something you're no longer part of. If you want to hear more real stories like this, you can subscribe. But that night, walking through the cold with nowhere to be and no one waiting, I wasn't thinking about lessons or growth or whatever other meaning people try to attach to endings. I was just thinking about how good it felt to stop pretending. And when I smiled, really smiled, for the first time in 3 days, it wasn't because I'd won or because I'd gotten revenge. It was because I'd finally chosen myself. Even if it meant watching the ball drop alone.